Philomene Lopez asked us, how hard is it to learn Gaelic or Gaelic? And Joshua Putman, then he had a question that was very similar. He asked if learning Gaelic does help to preserve culture, or is it nowadays thought of in Scotland and Scottish circles as silly, quote unquote? I could say maybe he means like, is it archaic? Is it pointless, like learning a dead language? So I have some resources for an answer to the first part of the question, which I could just rattle off now if you want. The wisdom I've gotten from people like my friend Jonathan and such, thank you guys, is that Gaelic is not too hard to break into. Duolingo is actually, as cliche as it may sound, is your best place to start. There are other apps that have Irish or Scots Gaelic as learning options, but Duolingo is kind of the place to start. It is easy to get into, and it's there. If you want to go further with learning the language, then what I was recommended was that you check out either the Gaelic College of Nova Scotia or an organization called Ostaig, which is located on the Isle of Skye. They both offer online resources, online ways of learning the language. So the digital age is your friend with this. There are clubs, there are Facebook groups, there's probably things like Discord groups too, where you can get support from people who are also Gaelic speakers or Irish speakers, where you can really get into it. But those were the recommendations that he gave me, was basically start with Duolingo and then consider checking out either the Gaelic College of Nova Scotia or Solomor Ostaig, and we'll make sure we get the links out there one way or another. So that's the answer. Is my understanding is it's a complex language. It's a beautiful language, and it takes some getting used to get your head locked into the phonetics and how things are spelled. But once you're there, it's not necessarily difficult to keep rolling with it. So it's like that first dive into the pool is the hardest part.
I would say this: any language that you're not using and not reinforcing your use of will be more difficult to internalize the older you get. You know, when you're a child, you soak up languages like a sponge. It's a psychology thing. You are hardwired to try to, understand language. After a certain age, it becomes more difficult to internalize. I took 4 years of German in high school and 1 or 2 years in college, and I can still putter through, but I don't speak German the way I did, in my second year of college, or when I went over to Germany for a while, because you're immersed in it. If you're not immersed in it and you're not speaking it in the home, or you're not speaking it in a group, or you're not using it on a regular basis, it will dissipate. It won't go away necessarily, but it will definitely dissipate.
Right.
The second part of the question, is it important? Does it preserve the culture? Or is it just silly? Is it dumb? Is it a dead language and you're not going to use it anymore? It depends on who you ask. If you're asking someone who loves now, I will say this: we are not Scottish, period. So let's start there. So our opinions on this matter less than somebody in Scotland. But if you're talking to somebody who loves history, loves the culture, and all the aspects and all the things that are the culture, and they just kind of geek out on that kind of stuff, their answer is going to be, yeah, it's absolutely imperative. You must keep it. You must push it forward. You must never forget. On the other end of the spectrum, you're going to have people who, are a banker, or who work at, Primark, or who work at a store in the UK, and they have zero use for Gaelic language on a daily basis. They don't care. They've never used it. They never will. And they're going to tell you, yeah, it's dumb. Why would I care about that? So you're going to get, just like any country, you're going to run the gamut on, does it matter or not? If it's not a language that is spoken by the majority or even minority, but a large minority of people, there will be a vast number of people who say, no, I have zero desire to learn it, to continue it. I don't care. I speak English. I'm fine. And then you'll have others who will say, no, it must be preserved. We must carry it forward. So it's a mixed bag. It depends on who you ask, 100%.
Yeah, no, I think I'm biased in favor of preserving the language. I'm biased in favor of preserving any language. I worry about macroculture sucking up small, less dynamic population-wise cultures. Like one of the charities I used to support was one that went to supporting language schools and culture schools on Native American reservations, because they're especially in a risky position of traditions and language especially evaporating. So yes, I think it depends on how you look at it. I think on a personal level, it kind of makes sense to just kind of take that as irrelevant, and that's a weird way to put it, but my point is, if you feel the drive to learn the language, learn the language. Starting with your personal enrichment is the place to start. And if you wind up being a pebble that causes ripple effects and it helps other people to realize this thing exists and maybe realize it's worth preserving and studying, then great. If it doesn't, you still have the personal enrichment. It's good for your brain, physically, and emotionally and spiritually. I think it's important. So start where you are. Start with your personal motivation. I do think, to your earlier point, there are definitely language-speaking clubs for all languages, because people realize you need to have some level of immersion and have some level of interaction in order to retain the knowledge and the functionality. So you'll find them. Again, the digital age is working in our favor here. So if you decide to get into this, you will find like-minded people without too much trouble, I don't think, who will be happy to speak with you in a Zoom chat in Gaelic or whatever language you're studying. It's and they're generally a very friendly community. Both Jonathan and friend Aiden, who both study, have said the people who are into this are just tend to be great people. So it's a very positive thing, and it doesn't need to. It does not. I don't think you need to have like the entire population of Scotland learning Gaelic, as long as you have enough. Now, what that tipping point is where it's safely preserved, I don't know. That's more of an academic question.
Vi sé tíocht suas a ghíhí ruda, gus a ghíhí ní éonar sé tíocht suas leis. Ja gra dún agus deimhil le tíoch.
Hey, thanks for watching, guys. Do you speak Gaelic? Do you study it? Let us know in the comments. If you're curious about Scottish culture, check out this playlist over here. If you want to learn more about visiting Scotland where you can learn everything about the culture, check this video for our tips.